Now, you were born in Blacktown. I know you're an upper house member, so you don't have a specific electorate. What are you hearing out Blacktown way? These people have been to hell and back over the pandemic.
Well, what I'm hearing from people in Blacktown is the same thing I'm hearing from people across New South Wales, which is their tolls are going up, their electricity prices are going up, their petrol prices are exploding, bread prices are climbing, yet their pay is staying the same. And they're going to look at all this new spending, all this borrowed money, and they're going to think that that's going to increase inflation and that's going to increase the interest rates I pay on my mortgage. That's what I think a person in Blacktown is going to feel. And I think everyone in Blacktown, as I think everyone across New South Wales, is entitled to ask Mr. Perrottet and Matt Kean, why did you ignore these problems for 12 years? And now why are you putting so much debt on the state's credit card when interest rates are reaching decades-like highs?
Yes. Look, I'm no supporter of the Reserve Bank Governor, Lowe, and I'll have a bit more to say about him later in the program, but nonetheless, there was Lowe at a major speech today arguing that we must contain spending. Does that, and you're right, because that accelerates the likelihood of interest rates going up, does this not apply to government?
Oh, it does apply to government, and I can tell you this, New South Wales Labor will be offsetting our spending that we take to the next election. But again, to put this into some perspective, the $42 billion whirlwind of spending that Dominic Perrottet unleashed is more than what Scott Morrison and Anthony Albanese promised at the last federal election combined.
And just repeating to our viewers, the interest rate means that the New South Wales government will pay, you've got to say this slowly, more in interest payments than it spends on TAFE, more in interest payments than the entire budget for the New South Wales Police. Now, Daniel, as for helping the people of New South Wales reach their hopes and dreams, am I right in saying that the Sydney CPI is rising faster than the national CPI, that's the Consumer Price Index, but wage growth is slower in New South Wales than in many other states? So out there, people are listening to this rhetoric and cliche-ridden stuff from Matt Kean saying, well, hang on, the cost of living crisis for me is getting worse.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Alan. Matt Kean might not be feeling these pressures, but lots of other people across New South Wales are. And if you pay attention to the fine print in Matt Kean's budget, what he's revealing is that no one in New South Wales should expect an increase to their real wages for at least another 2 years. People have been dealing with prices going up for more than a decade and their pay staying the same. But Matt Kean doesn't realise that those real wage growth won't come back for another 2 years. I know that Matt Kean might not understand what that means for a typical working family across New South Wales, but each time everybody goes to the supermarket, they understand what it is to have to buy the same amount of groceries with less pay. And I want to have a government in New South Wales that understands those pressures.
Right, now you could be the Treasurer at some point next year. What should be done if you were there now to alleviate this cost of living crisis?
End the waste. What we can't afford to do is to put more debt onto the state's books, which means we cannot pay for the world's most expensive flagpole. We can't pay for more blowouts on Sydney Metro project, which was revealed today. We can't have another stuff up like the Sydney CBD light rail, which put more than $1.5 billion of extra debt on the state's credit card. The waste has got to come to a stop.